Welcome to Talking with Titans. We're so excited to introduce one of our team members, Ian Cairns, and another lovely guest we have on today is Kevin. I'm co-hosting with Sean Prunty as per usual. Ian, I think we might start with yourself.
My name's Ian Cairns. I'm obviously Team Kinetica, so I'm our content creator and kind of visually, I suppose, help convey our brand message. Yeah, it's great, being into sports and also working for companies that are very involved in sports as well.
Brilliant. Okay, fabulous. Over to yourself, Kev.
Kevin English is my name. I'm known as the running man in my locality. In terms of my background, similar to Ian, it's always been sports related. So I would have started working in gyms, personal trainer. Funny enough, I had an issue with my heart, so I was told to either get rid of the gym work or get rid of the running. So the gym work was dropped. I've often been asked people that kind of know to kind of coach. So I started kind of dabbling in that, and then the momentum just picked up over the last 3 years. So I've been full-time coaching, and I'm also a physical therapist, so I treat people as well. And I do a little bit of work for CEP compression, which would be a recovery tool. Those fancy socks that Ian was wearing during his marathon.
I bought 5 pairs.
Your life as an endurance coach, obviously you participated in a fair few events yourself, but was that always something that you were looking to get into?
It's always been in the back of my mind because I was always kind of the slower type runner, the slow twitch runner rather than the fast twitch runner. So at school day sports, I was always last in the sprints. But I remember like in primary school, and they introduced this kind of longer event. I remember just finishing ahead of everyone, and everyone was like, oh, you got to join the local running club. So I went down, and of course the coach Tony had me sprinting, and I was like, Tony, I hate sprinting. So I left, and I think I came back about a year later, and he was like, okay, I'll let you into the long distance group if you're able to stay with the good guys in the club. Now they're all like national winners and they're setting national records. So for me, it was just right, I got to stay with these or I'm going to be sprinting. I stayed with them, and then he put me into the kind of middle distance group.
In terms of that being like a fast twitch versus a slow twitch runner, is it a case of you're more naturally able for one versus the other and you can work on it, or is it just a general preference?
It's a genetic makeup. So if Sean came to me and said, I'm a 20-minute 5k runner, but I haven't broken 4 hours for the marathon, I'm rubbing my hands because I'm going, he's naturally got the speed. So the endurance side is very easy to work on. Obviously, over years, you can develop it. The case with Ian, when he first came to me, I looked at his shorter times and I was like, wow, these are really good. Why hasn't he broken 3 hours? But then when I started to delve into his background, he will be one that would be fearful of doing higher mileage because he'd be always fearful of picking up injuries. And I suppose with the marathon training, you'll often hear like getting to the start line is the achievement. It means you haven't been injured or you've made it to the start line. I would say like Dublin Marathon, if 20,000 people apply for a place, probably looking at around 15,000 actually make the start line. So 25% of people probably don't make the start line.
How important was it to get a really good individual like Kevin to give you the advice, the input in terms of your individual program?
I never made a fully attempt at a assault at a sub 3. I knew I couldn't do sub 3 on my own. I just thought like I give a good account of myself, and I suppose when I thought about committing to a coach in the past, maybe that might have meant you had to meet up with them, and then it became like the 3 times a week, and I wouldn't be able to fulfill it. But in hindsight, it's a serious plug to Kev here. I should have done it years ago. My runs were always just kind of the same type. I never had a speed session. I did have a long run. I knew that was important. Having a coach and an accountability to it. The great thing with Kevin's plans is you get it every Sunday, so it's like the start of the week, and you break it down into bite sizes. If you were on the internet, you'd see a 16-week plan. You'd see the 16th week be like 20 miles, and you'd be thinking, oh God, that just seems like just too far away. I can't get those speeds, where it's like incremental improvements each week. So then you complete your week, you move on to the next level, you get your plan. So it's just steps, There
was any issues where he was unhappy with his run, was that sort of where you would give advice to him and say, look, you maybe need to slow down this week?
If you have someone and they're doing like a 16 or an 18-week cycle, you're going to have them runs, I call them meltdown runs, where you mightn't even complete it, and then you ring up the coach and you say, it was just one of them days, my legs were empty. And you just say, right, that's it, move on to the next one. And all of a sudden then, it might be 2 days later, it might be the following week session, and they nail it and they go, I'm so glad I didn't beat myself up over that. I keep saying you're better off having a 7 out of a 10 week than trying to hit 10 out of 10 every week. It's impossible to maintain it the whole way throughout the cycle of a marathon especially.
I had, I think, one particular 7 out of 10 run where I couldn't complete it, and I went back to the house dejected, and I rang Kev and he was like, yeah, look, just put it behind you. You do think immediately your whole plan's off kilter here, and like I was riddled with doubt the whole process. It's so much easier to look at a page in a book and go, actually I'm not going to do that page today and skip the page and, skip a plan. But like, there was a couple of times I wobbled and it was just good for Kev to be a sounding board and say, trust the process really. So I just say is start slowly, make peace with that. If you're going to try and get fit, get into running, give it a month, give it 2 months, but like, don't look after 2 weeks saying, I haven't seen any improvements. Do 3 runs a week and each run, take it nice and slow. And if you were to skip ahead to the 8th week, if you maintain that running, you will absolutely be quicker than you were in the first week. So just kind of do it up to a comfort level that's just a bit comfortable. If it started to hurt, bring it back a bit, but like, don't push through it. Don't be looking at your watch thinking, I need to be going harder than this. And it just puts bad thoughts in your head, bad memories, and you're less inclined to go out the door next time because you've got bad memories from it.
And you're kind of like,
after now doing the great time in the marathon, what's the next plan?
I thought I would have made peace with this and put a marathon to bed, because it did go so well. Got to the start line, the weather was perfect. Maybe I'm just realizing about myself that there always needs to be another goal. So I probably want to do a better time next year and try and do a faster 10K. So yeah, there's never any peace. You just want to do better, I suppose, every time. And then maybe an Ironman next summer. And I suppose if I did an Ironman, I would make peace and I wouldn't do them again. And I'd go back to the running. Because I kind of contacted Kev when I was doing my least running in a few years. And it's definitely rekindled my love for running.
It ties in a bit with the mental side. Starting from zero, how do you grow it, do you think, that love again?
I always like the idea that you're trying to just self-improve, betterment, and having a watch on timings, and a mile's always a mile, a kilometer's always a kilometer, and just trying to improve yourself. So I always enjoyed the challenge of that. The first 2 months or 3 months is probably the hardest to form that habit, to go for a run. But once you kind of get to that level of fitness where you're looking at a plan, or it's 10 miles, it's 6 miles, you leave the house and you don't even think about where you're going. You don't think of the distance, like, oh my God, it's a 10-mile run. That kind of goes. And I do remember when that happened, like where people who are getting into running, they actually think about, oh my God, I have to go from here all the way down there. And they think about how far it is. And if you can get through the first 2 to 3 months and you get to a certain base level of fitness where it's not hurting you and you feel it, like you know it, and you can do it any mileage, then that's a great place to be. And then that's where the addiction comes from.
And Kev, over to you. If you're used to like more solitary sports versus team sports, what's your experience with that, and how do you help people from a mental perspective who are so used to having other people rely on them and that could push them, as opposed to just having to meet their own expectation, but sometimes is a little bit easier to ignore? For
me, I've experienced that kind of being exceptionally fit, not an ounce of body fat on you, you feel amazing. And the Strava aspect, there can be a lot of comparing. While that motivates you, it's a fine line. You want to keep it kind of healthy too. So what I did with my Strava was I set up a running group for people that I coached or maybe previously coached, or they're involved in my run group on a Monday night. It really helped some guys I could see who were really unfit, got them really motivated to kind of, I'm going to keep up with that guy this week. Then again, it's that where it gets a little bit like too much, where they're like comparing the whole time. It's just focusing on yourself. Like, so for me, from an early age, I just kept a simple diary, record everything and how I was feeling that day, what I ate for dinner, what sweets I ate, what my weight was. It's so good when you look back at these things and you're going to go, I actually do that. Like, I can't believe I did that a year ago or 2 years ago.
What was your main areas of focus in terms of like your overall diet, if you had one during your training program?
It has evolved for me a little bit in terms of, now you can have your protein bar, your protein shake. It's so convenient now, like to bring a shake with you to training and you can get that into you. And whereas before you'd be waiting until you got home.
And in terms of supplementation then, would you use gels? Would you use recovery after your long runs? Would they be key?
I kind of got familiar with what worked best for me in the long runs previously. Like, I did use gels in all the other ones, but whatever I did this time, I just really got it right. Like, I did 10 miles and then every 30 minutes from that, so about every 4 miles after, two energy and 2 caffeine, and I got a huge boost from them. Yeah. And I think when you're running, it's you can feel like fatigue, like a 10% drop can be so subtle you can't notice it until you're looking at your watch. So I think I was conscious from my previous long runs when to take them. So I took a gel before I felt the drop. Again, comparing this one to all my previous ones, I was always terrified of hitting the wall, or I had such scar tissue from miles 20 to mile 26. I could do 20 miles, no problem, wouldn't need a coach for that. But like, that's like uncharted territory, was 20 to 26. So to do this marathon without any dark thoughts coming in or without hitting the wall was definitely a good training plan, good nutrition. I stayed hydrated on the route, electrolytes in the morning. So I'm delighted that I left no stone unturned, and I got the hydration, the nutrition and all of it right.
I think a lot of people, there's a misconception that you're feeling exhausted and then you take the gel. So is it a case of you were so planned out that you knew, okay, well, I know at this point in time, that's generally when I start to feel fatigued. So I'm going to take it just a little bit in advance of that so I don't ever hit that. Is that the right approach to take?
I just noticed on the half marathon when I was doing my time trial, I felt dramatically an improvement. So I knew at mile 9 to take one. Yeah, I got a huge bump from it. So it's, I think the way they say, always drink before you're thirsty, take little sips, and that's what I did. So I suppose in previous marathons as well, it's sometimes it can be quite hard to get a cup on the side. Kev had a bottle of water and I was just swigging to kind of keep it tipping over. So do it before you feel the fatigue. You're too late then.
So in terms of your recovery, what did you do to optimize it?
Definitely, this was my best recovery. I had more miles, I think, than previous times, and 26 miles, I didn't feel like I was pounding concrete the whole time. And I think a good way of always gauging just how tough it was, can you walk up and down the stairs the next day? So I had one of our recovery shakes straight after. I had vitamin C. Kevin, the company, had recommended taking two drops of vitamin C. So recovery, protein, eating healthily that night, and good sleep. I was nicely surprised at how I didn't feel like my body was traumatized unlike previous years.
I think getting the taper is key, and again, everyone is different with regards to taper. So
that was a huge thing this time as well, because I always got the taper wrong, and I did like Kev said, I'd be on the couch putting my feet up. Even now, I've noticed since the marathon, my legs they feel fresher, but probably in a bad way. You can feel the legs kind of feeling like they're kind of humming, the week of the event. Like, so when you pick a plan with Kev, you just trust the process, do what he says, do the day, do the plan, and trust him.
Each and every week that you were going out, you were smashing your records considerably. So was recovery towards the end of a run quite important as well, focusing on that?
Whenever I got the plan each week, or if anyone is doing something similar, it's like to kind of really think immediately ahead to your week and what you have in your calendar. The dreaded Wednesday speed session, I try and do it at lunchtime, or see how the weather is, or I ended up just trying to put my whole week around that date, be prepping for the Wednesday hard session the night before, so make sure I get a good night's sleep on the night before. And then, like I said, I bought the recovery socks, and maybe they were a huge help. I'd never worn the recovery socks before, but every single run I went on, I had the socks on because I'd heard that they help with blood circulation. So when I started this, I met Kev. First thing I did, 5 pairs of socks, and I didn't take them off the whole time. So it's such a big ordeal, the marathon. You want to give the best account to yourself, and you kind of get one chance at a marathon. So recovery, sleep, just best shoes, best socks. I just wanted to make sure that I did everything absolutely flawlessly, and then it kind of gives you the peace of mind to give it your best, because you've done the hard work. So coming home at night, it'd be a protein shake straight after the run, and then at night time I take Zinc Mag, ZMA for going to sleep, and that was a new one I hadn't taken before. That probably had a huge help as well.
So you've basically done everything right for this to have the best marathon. How do you improve on that?
Kev should have said you can retire on that now. Well done. He was like, instead he said 240 next year. So
that's the spirit. Something that I'm always really curious about, because for me, as I said, I think I try and distract myself from the actual doing. So I tend to listen to a playlist that I really like, and that brings my mind somewhere else. What did you listen to, Ian, or did you listen to something?
One of my short runs, I went out and I just forgot that was my first run in 6 months that I didn't have music on. So it was such a difference. I felt kind of probably calmer doing it. So I've learned so much this time. I know I don't need music, which is liberating, because I actually forgot how much I enjoy not listening to music. So yes, sometimes I do listen to dance music or something for a hard Wednesday session, but on the day it was just great listening to your body, and you're hitting the wall. Like, my heart rate was fine, and I kind of felt like calm. So I loved that.
I really appreciate it, guys. It was such an insightful chat. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thanks very much, guys.
See you guys. Bye.